Happy Monday, everybody. It's another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And Mike, it is a happy Monday since we're talking about a win.
Well, this is the first official Sam Pittman is not going to be fired. Ask Mike.
Oh, that's true. There you go. So we're going to answer some questions about that in the show, and we're going to explain why you just said that. But first, as always, Mike, you guys know I have to say this. Like, subscribe, and comment. You guys help us out so much when you do those things, and you guys are awesome at doing it. I think the past few Ask Mikes have been the most liked videos when it relates to Arkansas athletics on YouTube over the past few weeks. So that's huge. You guys do a great job at that. So thank you so much for doing that. Keep it up. Do an amazing job. We appreciate you guys for watching.
I want to do a shout out to Hogville because that's still where most of our questions come from. It's easier for me to field questions doing that. You can reach us in other ways, but that's the best way to do it. And if you're not sure, go to hogville.net, sign up, get yourself a username, and then you can go to Ask Mike and post your question. And it's a lot easier for me to do it that way. And the other thing is they provide a forum for this.
Yes.
I mean, we wouldn't have this without them. So we're really happy with Hogville.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Hogville. And if you guys don't understand how to sign up, it's super easy. Just go to hogville.net. Click the sign up button in the top. I think it is the right corner of the page. Then click on the forums, and then you'll see an Ask Mike forum. Mike responds to people there himself. So again, go sign up for a hogville.net account if you haven't already. Okay, let's get into the questions, Mike. Our first question is from Jimmy Hogball, who asks, nice win for the Hogs, but what happened to the defense?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question because it gets into a really interesting subject that came up during the game. A lot of debate about this. I even got involved, and I usually don't tweet during a game.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of screwed up. I'll tell you this, because it's always dangerous to come to conclusions before the thing is finished.
Yeah.
And what I started out responding because if you remember, they were up by 4 touchdowns at one point. Fans were starting to leave the game. And then all of a sudden, they scored a touchdown. Arkansas turned the ball over, they scored again, and now it's down to a 2-possession game. And somebody said, yeah, that started blaming Pittman for that. So I said, look, it's not Pittman, it's not his defense, he's not the one running the defense. And I said, for whatever reason, this defense has vanished, and this game is not over. And then, of course, right after that, Arkansas forced another turnover, one of 5 in the game, and they ended up winning the game again going away, so it wasn't close. And then a bunch of people jumped on me. He's stupid, he's complaining, and they win big. Well, it was at the point that this happened that I was making that point, and no one knows at that point how it's going to go from that point on. Just reinforces this idea you're really setting yourself up if you talk about something on the internet before the game is over, because it can always change. But this is where it gets complicated. If you're looking at the Ole Miss game this week, you've got to be concerned about the defense. They've suddenly dropped to 13th in the SEC in terms of total yardage allowed. Something's gone bad with this defense in some ways since then. And Sam Pittman talked about that on Monday. He said, we've been losing containment. He said, before when we missed tackles, we had 2 or 3 players around the ball that could make up for it. Lately, we haven't had that. So we've got to do something about that. So he's concerned about it too. On the other hand, what were we complaining about and hearing complaints about early in the year? No turnovers. Arkansas's not forcing any turnovers. I don't think it gets much better than 5 turnovers and affects 7 because you stopped them on 4th down twice. That's a turnover. So 7 turnovers in this game. So as bad as it looked and as many chunk plays as there were and as much total yardage as they gave up, they sort of turned Mississippi State into what Arkansas was early in the year. They've got all these points, all these statistics, and have no points to show for it. That was a big complaint against the Oklahoma State game and some of these other games. So it's a mixed bag, but I still think we've seen a shift. We've seen this team go from very quickly a team carried by its defense to now a team that's being carried by its offense.
Yeah.
That's just another one of these strange things that have gone on this year.
But you need both clicking at the same
do.
time to start winning some of these more competitive games in the SEC. And you have those coming up with Ole Miss and Texas and Missouri. I'll even put them in there. But I think we're also not giving enough credit to Mississippi State. While Mississippi State's defense was one of the worst in the SEC in so many categories, their offense was actually doing a pretty good job against teams like Georgia and even Texas A&M. They were scoring points.
The last two games they played before this, which were Georgia and Texas A&M, two of the teams right at the top.
Yes.
Those two teams scored fewer points on them than Arkansas did.
Which I thought was quite interesting. And I said after the game, I said, look, I understand that Mississippi State is bad. But you also have to give credit to Arkansas a little bit in that game
and
where
Arkansas
they were able to
limited
score.
them to fewer points than those two teams did.
Exactly.
So, you know, you got to look at a lot of data when you come to these conclusions. And unfortunately, while the game's going on, that doesn't all come through to your head. But this is just a very confusing thing to me right now. What does this really mean? What does this mean going forward? That this trend where the offense is trending up and the defense is trending down. You'd like to get them both going at the same time. What I'm going to say is this Ole Miss game is critical.
Oh, absolutely.
Because now you're facing the best team in the league offensively. How are you going to handle that? A lot of people believe that what's happened here is that Travis Williams has all these options, and we talked about it before after the Tennessee game. All the things that he did.
Yeah.
He could have a 3-man front. He could have a 4-man front. He could have 3 linebackers. He could have 2. He could have 6 D-backs. He could have 4.
Switching it up. Yeah.
And he was guessing. He was guessing at what's coming next. So he's still guessing. In the last 2 weeks, the guessing hasn't been good. Talked to somebody today that said, you know what? We should go back to his base defense again.
Okay.
What we were using earlier in the year, because you're guessing less, but you're more fundamentally sound.
True, absolutely.
We'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. I think the biggest thing for me after going back and watching the tape, it was just 2 things stood out to me was the missed tackles. And like Sam Pittman talked about in his press conference, that is something that they need to fix, and they need to fix that moving forward, absolutely, especially with Ole Miss on the horizon. The other thing, too, I was kind of shocked at some of the penalties that the defense was committing. And I just felt like, to me,
Not focused.
Yeah, something like that. And I again, maybe I'm wrong, but it just felt like it was a little undisciplined, and they shouldn't have been making some of those.
So Travis
mistakes.
Williams goes from being a guy they want to make the head coach because of after the Tennessee, just make him the head coach, to now he's got the 13th ranked defense in the conference.
Ooh.
So I'm not trying to
No, you're
rag
not
on
trying to bash
him,
yeah.
but this stuff changes all week to week.
Absolutely. Razor Alex 88 says to see the Hogs lay the wood on Mississippi State was refreshing. There were some annoyances, but it was great to see them putting the foot back on the gas to slam the door shut in the 4th quarter. One more win to bowl eligibility.
What I liked about this game was this was important. Now, I'm not one of these extremists, and I've said this all along. Even if they had lost this game, I'm not sure Sam Pittman's fired. But it
wouldn't have helped the case.
It puts it on the table for sure. Yeah. And I think they all knew it. I think his coaches knew it. I think the players knew it. And this was a potential trap game. Everybody that plays these guys, other than Vanderbilt, I think this is one of those weird games where you're not sure what's going to happen
there
when
were
you play.
national media picking Mississippi State. It was crazy.
And you keep thinking, well, they don't have an SEC win. They're going to get one sooner or later. This might be it. And I think you got to give these guys a lot of credit for saying, hey, we're not only going to win this game, we're going to win it bigger than the other teams have played them. And this isn't going to be close.
Yeah, because we're going to cover the spread. They were only giving Arkansas what was a 7-point favorite in that one. Yeah, they covered the spread
big time.
And then some. They made a statement for sure. I think some people.
I think they made a statement about how they feel about this head coach and about how this staff feels about this head coach. That's where the Pittman people have been wrong all along. And I would have agreed with them if I felt like there was dissension on the team, with the players, dissension on the staff. There's never been any of that this year.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because we always bring up this point. Every time we get a question about Fire Pittman or any of those things, we always bring up the point that the players love him, recruits love him, the coaching staff wants to work for him. We've always talked about that. So I think you're right. I think there was a little bit of that in that win of like, listen to me. And when they walked off the field, I thought this was interesting too. They weren't like celebrating crazy. It was kind of subdued, right? It was like, okay, yay, we won, you know. Camp Ball got in my face and was like, that was how the Razorbacks are supposed to win. But it was kind of subdued. It was subdued celebration. And I think that's because they went into that game going, yeah, we know we're going to win this. Yeah. We feel good about this. We feel good about what we've done to go into this game. So we're going to talk about the Fire Pittman crowd right here, though, because KY Hogg says, I'm a Pittman fan. The Fire Him crowd has been driving me crazy. Now it's their turn because he ain't going anywhere.
Okay, neither are they. They're still going to be there. Here's the difference. You don't have to listen to them anymore because you know it's not going to have an effect on anything. There's so many things we could talk about when we talk about Pittman. Somebody brought up this point that they've had more SEC wins under Sam Pittman than the previous coaches. That includes the John L. Smith interim, that includes Bielema, that includes Chad Morris, and that includes the 2 games Barry Lundy Jr. was interim. So he's had more wins than all of the SEC wins than all of them combined. And I keep pointing this out, but he only had one non-bowl, because now they're going bowling again unless they lose Louisiana Tech.
Well, then we're going to have a different conversation.
Yes.
Then I think Pittman maybe should be fired.
This would be, in 5 seasons, 4 bowl trips. When's the last time that happened? So come on. I mean, if you wake up and smell stop dreaming about things and coming up with these expert opinions that are idiotic, you will understand that you just don't go around firing coaches left and right when there's definite progress being made.
Absolutely. And then the other thing, too, I want to give a shout out. John Hawes was the guy that I saw who tweeted that stat. And he is in our Hog Discord, the Tuss Talk with Ty Discord. And I chat with all the Hog fans there. And a lot of them, you know, they understand. They're like, we like Sam. We think maybe he should stay. I don't know about all of them in that Discord, but a lot of them are very positive on Sam. And they were kind of joking. I said, oh, I bet you're getting a lot of hate from posting that stat. And he goes, oh, yeah, the Fire Sam Pittman crowd is still very loud.
Oh,
so
they're mad at me. I mean,
I know they're mad at you. I see the YouTube comments every week.
Well,
Don't you worry.
it's not just YouTube. I mean, one guy on X, what did he call me? A geriatric, something geriatric?
Oh, he called you a geriatric?
Yeah,
what?
geriatric has-been or something like that.
Oh, my goodness.
Which I thought was funny.
That is kind of...
I am geriatric, that's for sure. And at some point I will be a has-been. I don't know when that is, but it's coming.
Not right now, okay? People still watch this show. So Eddie Lynn says, I've been watching college football for about 70 years, but I don't claim to be a genius like those experts who have been calling for Green to be benched. Experts? How about dummies?
You know, again, that argument to me has been stupid all along. I will disagree with Eddie Lynn on one thing.
What?
There are things in college football that are very complicated, like trying to figure out what's going to happen week to week. Remember the stupid? You weren't here. You guys were on the road. But Evan and I had to break down some of these games this week, these SEC, and I stupidly said that the Ole Miss-Oklahoma matchup was just pointless. They might as well not play the game, and OU might end up with one of its biggest losses ever. It was the dumbest things I've ever said in my life. And, of course, OU at one point was leading in that game, still played very well, and so it was a stupid comment. So people make stupid comments because it's so hard to figure out what's going on week to week.
This is a weird year when it comes to college football. I mean, what about the dummies that are still not giving Vanderbilt enough credit? What about the dummies that were going on and saying that Vanderbilt wasn't going to cover against Texas? And what Texas was 19-point favorites? Well, how do you like them now? Give some respect.
So my point is there are things about college football that are very complicated. There are some things, however, that are just so easy to see it's not funny.
Yeah.
And there's never been a point, in my opinion, in which I saw a reason for Taylor Green not to be the head coach, not to be the starting quarterback. For one thing, Bobby Petrino picked him. You think he doesn't know what he's doing? So even when he was struggling a little bit, now here's what this is what's interesting. There were a couple of internet websites that actually did polls before the game saying, should Taylor Green be benched? So this was being openly discussed, and I think it was a result of the fact that he had that one bad play against LSU where he tried to throw the ball with people in his face. Oh, yeah, he's just not learning. But the point is, if you looked at overall what he did in that LSU game, it was his best game in terms of moving up in the pocket, finding his first option, quickly delivering the ball, and moving the chains. He was very good in that game, except for that one.
And he's getting calmer in the pocket as well. He's actually seeing the play develop instead of, like you said, dumping it out to that first option so quickly. And the other thing, too, is the runs in that game, in that Mississippi State game, they were designed runs for him. It wasn't just like he was panicking and running and trying to extend the drive.
There's some of that. I mean, Sam Pittman ended up admitting on Monday that they didn't run him against LSU because that was too close to the injury that he had against Tennessee.
I think he probably still wasn't 100%. Like they kept saying he's fine, he's fine, he's fine. I think he probably wasn't.
Well, he was in this game.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
And then the other thing is, he's now moved into second place in the SEC in passing. He's the number 2 passing quarterback in the SEC right now. He's also number 2 in running, the number 2 running quarterback. So number 2 in both of those stats. He also just got through having, statistically, one of the best games in the history of this school. When you go for 5 touchdowns, 4. No, was it 6?
It was 6.
6 touchdowns, 5 through the air, 1 on the ground, and I don't think there's been some other games like that with some quarterbacks, like, I don't know, Mallet, I think, had one like that. But that's one of the best games, an individual statistically, that a quarterback has had at Arkansas.
Hog Redneck asks, what's your reaction to the combo of Braylon Russell and Rashad Dubinion? I like the hit him with power, hit him with speed aspect, but Dubinion worries me a bit. He needs to learn how to hold on to the football.
I think in this game he had a couple of fumbles out of bounds after he was already, so, you're saying to yourself, well, he still is careless with the ball. So I think that's something to keep your eye on. But when you look at the fact that Rodney Hill's coming back apparently this week, so that's another option.
He's probable, right? So he's probable. He was practicing before the Mississippi State game with a brace on.
So he's probably back. And then Jaquindon Jackson is probably out for this game, but then they've got an open date week, and Sam Pittman again said on Monday he's probably back for Texas. So I think he'll be back for the rest of the year. So I wouldn't worry too much about running back. Some people were worried that, maybe Braylon Russell injured himself, and that could be a problem. I don't think he's injured.
I don't think he's injured.
Sam Pittman accused him of faking an injury. I don't think that was the case. I watched that on replay. It looked like maybe he cramped up while he was running. Here's the thing that shocked me. If he doesn't cramp up, he scores.
Yes.
I didn't know he had that kind of speed.
But I do think, because I said immediately to Alyssa and DJ, I said, oh, he's running out of gas. He's running out of gas. And DJ goes, yeah, it looks like he's running out of gas.
If you go back and look, you can see where his leg. I'm serious.
Okay, all right.
I think something locked up there in the back.
I think the way Braylon, the way he said it, right, where he was like, my hammy is fine. I got scared there for a second. So maybe he did feel something there and just went, ooh, I got to slow down before I injure it, and then got, that's why he slowed down.
I think he would have scored, but I mean, the speed he showed. Now, here's what I'm going to inject something here. I'm going to be an armchair quarterback.
Okay, all right.
I'm a coach on that team. If I'm Petrino, any of those, you know what I tell him?
What?
Lose 10 pounds, just 10 pounds. Get down to 240.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could catch him at that size. I mean, are you kidding me?
I think it's because of how big he is. I mean, he does not look like a freshman. Every time I stand next to him, no, I know, but I think it's the weight. I think you're right.
The weight makes you fast?
No, the weight, it makes him slow down a little bit.
Oh, okay, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, if he were just to get rid of a little bit of that weight, I think he'd be the perfect running back. Big enough to pass block, big enough to bust through on a 4th and 1 or whatever. But the kind of speed that's breakaway type speed, I just didn't know he was that fast.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think everybody was shocked up there in that in the press box who were going, whoa, he's
maybe
running.
It was their defense. Who knows? But they don't have the best defense out there.
Yeah, they don't. Hog fan in Texas asks, with all the injuries, could we have a stretcher crew on the sidelines, and every time an Ole Miss player goes down, we run out a stretcher to carry them off?
Well,
I think he's making a joke,
right?
It's
kind of a funny comment, because the truth is, when you look at an injured player that has to have a stretcher, they still don't just stick him on the stretcher immediately and cart him off. If you're injured bad enough to need a stretcher, they're going to make sure before they move you. So I don't think having a stretcher run out automatically is going to do anything. Here's the interesting part to me. What we're starting to see, because Ole Miss sort of patented this, and honestly, Auburn under Malzahn is where I first saw it happening when Gus was at Auburn. But Ole Miss has been doing this lately. Guess what's happening now? If you watch a lot of, because I watch games all day.
Yeah, I know you do.
All kinds of teams are now doing this. And here's why they're doing it. Why shouldn't they do it? If the SEC is not going to come up with something to stop this, and we've discussed how it could be stopped, if I'm a head coach, I'm doing it too. I mean, why not? If they're not going to do anything, and we're seeing it, I'm telling you, they're not the only ones now. We've seen players on replay, they'll show somebody standing around, all of a sudden they look around and a teammate will point, tap him on the shoulder like, hey, you're supposed to drop. And he goes, oh, and he drops down. That's not just Ole Miss doing that now.
No, I know. There's other teams doing it as well, but I like your solution. I go back to what you came up with. Player safety rule, right? And you had said they had to sit out for what, the next drive? Or
yeah,
what
that
was
whole
it?
possession.
That whole possession, okay.
If you're on defense, and most of the time that's what it would be, but it would be offense either, if you fake an injury. As long as that possession is in place, you can't come back. Now, if there's a punt and you get the ball back and then you're back on defense again, then you can come back in. But who knows how long that's going to be?
Yeah.
And the other team might go down and score on you while you're sitting there on the bench.
Yeah, I think that would stop players from doing it, and especially if you're a player they want to keep out there, right? I mean, that would stop it in my opinion. But who knows? We'll see if the NCAA or SEC decides to implement that. If they do, Mike, I'm giving you all the credit, okay?
Well, they're not going to
They're not going to do that, but I'm giving you all of the credit. Okay, Swine American wants to know, do you think either Petrino or Williams will leave after the season despite the hot seat for Pittman cooling off? Perhaps Pittman is smart enough to know that he can't keep his job without high-power coordinators. Okay,
to me, these are really two separate questions. So let's address the first one. Is Petrino or Travis Williams going to leave after this season now that the hot seat has cooled off? I mean, why would they do that? They're not going anywhere. Petrino, I've been told, doesn't want to be a head coach again. I don't want to disparage, and I don't think I am, Travis Williams, but I don't think somebody's going to hire him as head coach now with the 13th ranked defense in the SEC. Maybe it comes back up, but it's not like right after the Tennessee game where suddenly everybody thinks he's a hot property. I don't think he was looking to become a head coach at that point anyway. But everything I've been told is that they like working for this guy, and why wouldn't they? As a head coach, he lets them do their thing, and there are a lot of coaches that don't do that. Now, this other criticism, it's sort of directed at, okay, the only reason you're keeping your job is you've got really good coordinators. Well, how many coaches can you say that about? Virtually all of them.
Yeah.
What kind of a coach is going to keep his job over a period of 3, 4, 5 years if he's got average coordinators?
Yeah.
They will get you fired if you don't have good ones, right?
Absolutely.
So I just don't, I don't know what to make of that, really. I would just tell you that, yes, he's got good coordinators. Yes, he's keeping them because he lets them do their job. He doesn't interfere. And I don't think he's doing that because he's a goofball. I think he understands that's the way to go. Frank Broyles did that a lot. He absolutely believed in having a staff that helps you win games. He was a CEO type guy.
Yeah.
I don't think Pittman sits there like with his brain turned off and makes no decisions. But I do think he's smart enough to know if I've got good people out here, I need to listen to them.
Well, also, it's just kind of very self-explanatory, right? If you're the head coach, you want to win ball games. If you do not win ball games, you will be fired. So how do I make myself win ball games? I have to put together one great team, right? I have to recruit well, and I have to put together a team that can help you win. Also, you need to have great people around you, a great staff. Guys, this isn't rocket science.
No.
Compare that to your everyday, you know? Us at Pig Trail Nation want to hire good staff so we can do our jobs and make sure that we're the top sports team in the state of Arkansas, right?
Yeah, would Alyssa keep her job if we were all a bunch of dummies?
No, she would not.
Maybe we are.
Yeah, maybe we're not. But, you know, Alyssa, as our boss,
right,
has to put together a great team around her because she wants us to succeed. She wants the team to succeed. So it's not rocket science, people. It's not rocket science. Okay. Sherlock Hogg says we are getting close to the early signing period for football. Do the Hogs have any high-impact high school recruits on the hook? The high school recruiting newswire seems a little quiet.
Whenever I get a recruiting question, I always go to Otis because he knows a lot more about recruiting than I do. And here's what Otis told me. He said they do have, right now, they only have 1 4-star committed, and the rest of them are 3 stars. But he said there were several of these guys that are now 3 stars that were originally 4 stars, and when they committed to Arkansas, they immediately dropped. We see that happen every year. That is the flaw in this whole system of 4 stars, 3 stars, or whatever. A 5-star is generally going to be a 5-star. But when you get into that 4 versus 3 category, if you're a school like Arkansas, for whatever reason, they'll drop you if you're being considered by other bigger name schools, what people perceive a bigger name, and they decide to go, you drop. So he said the class is better than it looks on paper.
Yeah.
But he also said, and this is absolutely true, I believe, that these days the issue is the portal. That yes, you're going to continue to recruit high school seniors with the idea of developing some of these guys into better players, which you need. But you're going into the portal and getting people, and Sam Pittman and his staff have done a really good job in the portal, especially considering they haven't had a lot of NIL money to work with. Now what I'm being told is they're on the verge of turning that NIL situation around. They're going to have more money in this next portal class.
So, yeah.
And they're hopeful that combined with their already shown ability to go get people out of the portal, I think it looks good for next year. The portal is what you need to be looking at right now. High school recruiting, that's down the road. If you want to talk about next year, which most people are, I think there are 2 developments here. Better NIL situation, and this staff's now, this is the other factor. Nobody now can say to a portal guy, you might not better commit to Arkansas because Pittman may be gone. Or if he is gone, then that changes a new coach comes in here, you're less likely to be able to pull people in and out of the portal because they don't know what you're going to do at that school. So this thing where you take Pittman being gone off the table, I think improves their portal class.
Or to play devil's advocate here, you get a different coach in that the people go, oh wow, that's actually a better situation for me, like a Coach Cal situation. We're not saying that Coach Cal.
If you could do that.
If you can, and that's my point. I'm just saying there is another side to that. If you can get a coach with of a high caliber and things like that.
That's a very unusual situation.
I know it is. I'm just playing devil's advocate, Mike. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
I just believe that with Pittman, that whole thing about him not being here is because it's off the table, because the NIL money is going up. I think their portal class will get even better. And this staff has demonstrated an ability, even without NIL money, to do a pretty good job in the portal. I think it's going to be even better.
Absolutely. And again, if you're on the fence about this staff and all that, you have to think if what we're hearing, not about the portal, sorry, the NIL situation is true, that is going to set up the staff much, much more just favorably for the future. I mean, it really will. If what we're hearing is true about the NIL situation.
And again, what I've always been told is Pittman wants to leave this program in much better shape than when he took it, so that whoever comes on after him is in a good situation. He doesn't have to do a lot of rebuilding.
Well, listen, if he can set up the NIL situation to be more favorable than when NIL started and he was in that situation, if he can do just that, I think he's helped the next person as well.
Well, again, he's had 1 losing season out of 5. 1 season where he didn't go to a bowl game. Now that COVID year, they didn't go to a bowl game, but they could have gone to a bowl game. It's just TCU opted out because they knew they would get beat.
Correct. Exactly. Because they knew they'd get beat. Arky Stuck in Mizzou asks, what happened to Drink and his boys? No playoffs for them. Thank you, Bama.
Okay. A lot of people think I'm down on Drinkwitz. I've explained this a lot. My attitude about him changed at SEC Media Days when he was really saying the things I think coaches should say. He toned down his remarks, toned down his attitude. So I don't have an issue with this guy right now. But here's what I would say about Mizzou. They lost their quarterback. And when you don't have how many teams in the SEC can win when their quarterback is gone? I guess you could say A&M has had 2 quarterbacks this year. I think we're seeing one of them's a lot better than the other one.
Yeah.
But what would happen if Arkansas suddenly lost Taylor Green? Would they keep winning? I think they might win a game or two, and depending on what it is, but I think it would have an impact. But this situation, they were in a position where, as good as their defense has been and their running game, I think without their quarterback who can run and throw, and I look back on what he did. This guy went to the hospital. His problem with his ankle was so bad last week, not this game, but the week before. He went to the hospital and came back.
Yeah. And I still won the game for them.
I've heard he was told, don't do this. And he did anyway, and they probably deadened his ankle. That's what I'm thinking, so he's not feeling the pain. But he came back, and because of him, they won that game. But now the word is his ankle is really bad. It may be broken, and he may be lost for the year.
Oh, my gosh.
So what team is not going to be affected by that?
Yeah.
So if you're a Hog fan out there and you don't like Missouri, and there's a lot of reasons why you don't like Missouri. I mean, they've always beaten Arkansas most of the time since joining the league. It's annoying that they consider us a rival. We can't figure out why we should be their rival because there's no natural ties between the two schools. But all I'm saying is, I'm not sitting here right now glad they lost their quarterback. No one wants to be in that position.
Absolutely. You started off this question with a surprising comment, is that you let up on Drinkowitz a little bit.
Yeah, because he changed.
Well,
yeah, he did.
Maybe. We'll see. Maybe SEC Media Days, I agree with you there. He was a little bit less smarting off and things like that. But did you happen to see the video of him on social media? What he said to one about?
Cussing a little bit.
But no, he said to an Alabama player, he starts looking at an Alabama player and says, and the lip readers are good on the internet. If you want to go and say that he didn't say this, it looked like to me he did. If I had my quarterback, we'd be beating you. We'd be winning this game. If I had my quarterback, we'd be winning this game. I still think there's a little bit of that attitude there. I mean, tell me I'm wrong.
Well,
don't be smarting off to an Alabama player.
Here's what somebody
in a game.
pointed
Let's
out
just
to
say
me.
That.
Here's what somebody pointed out to me that watches this show a lot. He said, "You're always talking about how Ole Miss is not an Arkansas rival, that Arkansas fans don't consider them a rival. They want to win the game, but when Arkansas beat them in 2021, nobody rushed the field. It was just like, okay, we beat those guys." And he said, so you're pushing that point, but all you ever do is talk about Drinkwitz. So why don't you shut up about him, because you don't talk about other teams' head coaches and all this stuff. And I started thinking to myself, hey, you're right. If they aren't the rival, why do you worry so much about what their coach does or what they do?
That's a good point.
Just talk about them the week that you play them, and that's my new philosophy.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just think it's interesting you made that comment that he's done, he was a little bit less smarting off at SEC Media. He was, but I'm telling you, why are you coming up to an Alabama player? I just think that's silly to go up to an Alabama player. They're beating you. They're doing it handedly, and you went up and if we had our quarterback, we'd be beating you right now. Come on, get over yourself.
Then you can start calling him Dinky Witz.
I will. You know what? How about that? I will start calling him Dinky Witz. You know what? I'll take over that.
That's up to you, not me.
Mousedown says, I was blown away by the basketball team. Our guards were outstanding, and the inside game is better than I thought, even without the Tennessee transfer. Then they shoot and they play defense, but I remember that exhibition win over another #1 team last year. History better not repeat itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking about that, what happened to this team after they also had a big exhibition win early in the year. There are differences. Last year they won that game. They blew a first half lead, were almost beat. Arkansas came back and hit a shot to force overtime, and then they ended up winning it by 4 points. This year, there was never a point in that game that Arkansas looked like they were in trouble. They pretty much dominated from the beginning to the end.
Right.
Ended up winning by 16 points. So
right, but Kansas did have 3 players that were out. You know.
They had 3 players out, 2 of them starters, but Arkansas had a starter out. So
they did.
They had 2 out. Arkansas had 1 starter out.
Two guys out that you say that are starters, but one of them that was supposed to be in the rotation this year as well. Yeah. 3 talented players were out for Kansas. I think they are going to be a totally different team when they have those 3 guys back. That's just my opinion.
I was you can't tell me you don't agree with this. I watched both of those games. The exhibition win last year over Purdue, the win over Kansas. I was much more impressed with the team this year.
Oh, I am as well. Whoa. Don't think I'm not impressed with this year's team. I am very impressed with this year's team. I mean, Kansas, Bill Self even said after the game that the 3 guards that Arkansas has in Boogie Fland and DJ Wagner and John L. Davis.
They scored 51 points.
Correct.
And Davis was 1 of 6 when he's a 3-point shooter. If he gets back to what we're expecting out of him,
right?
Whoa,
yeah, he's going to be dangerous. And I said that to some people who were like, "Oh, I'm so excited about these guys," and I go, "You're going to be excited about Nelly too." I think some of it maybe is that maybe he's a little bit still not 100%. I don't know. I mean, he's coming back from injury. Yeah, maybe he needs to get back into it.
What about inside? Ivicevic or Ivicic?
Zvonimir Ivicic. You got it. Zvonimir Ivicic.
He was much better than I thought. Yeah, I mean, he had a spin move there one time and went up. He hit a couple of threes.
He did.
He rebounded. He had a blocked shot. He did all this stuff you want a true center to do. So that was impressive. And then I don't know, Trevin Brazile. I mean, supposedly Pittman has told him, look,
Calipari.
Pittman.
I got you.
Supposedly Calipari has told him, you're not going to be what you were last year. I won't let you. You're not going to be some tall guard that drifts around on the edges shooting 3-pointers and grabbing off rebounds that go long. Yeah. He said, you got to get inside and mix it up. And I thought he did that. Now, he only scored 5 points, had some rebounds, had some assists, did some things that were good. He's the one that I think has the biggest upside, the most he has to accomplish, because he's got to change the way he played.
Yeah.
But I think he will. And the point is, if he does that and you get Adu back, who was an all-SEC performer at a big forward spot last year, then I think their inside game is fine. Yeah. They certainly showed the ability to steal the ball and score in transition. There's no part of them that I thought was weak, except the 3-point shooting kind of went down as the game progressed. And a lot of that was, again, John L. Davis just not hitting his threes.
Right, and I think he'll get back into it again. I mean, I know if some people were listening to what Calipari was saying to some of the guys, he was mic'd up for some of that exhibition game, and they showed a point where he was like, come on, what are you doing? You know, this is, and he was kind of hyping him up a little bit. So I think maybe he's just getting into it. He's settling in. Who knows? I know some of them didn't practice a little bit with those injuries, so maybe there's some of that getting settled in and getting better.
I wouldn't worry about that turning into last year, which was a disaster after that game. About 3 or 4 games down the road, we were going, what's wrong with this team?
No, absolutely. But I really do believe if you listen to the comments that Bill Self was saying about this Arkansas team, and you have to trust the man. He is a legend for a reason. He knows what he's talking about. And he said, this team may be better than some of Cal's at Kentucky's and says things like that. Now, I know Calipari is like, that's a little bit early to say that, to Coach Self there. But I think you really saw a lot of good in this game. I want to go back and watch some of the tape from this game, and I know they have the exhibition with TCU that's coming up this Friday, but I want to go back and watch the tape a little bit. Offensively, I thought they were clicking on all points, but defensively is somewhere that I know Coach Cal is emphasizing, because last year his team at Kentucky, that was where their weak spot was. I want to go back and look at some of the tape, but I think defensively there's some things they can clean up, but we'll see what happens moving forward. The good thing is it's just an exhibition game, so whatever happens, moving forward, this game actually doesn't count on anything. You hope it would, though, because they did go and beat them, and they did go and beat them by 16 points.
I think it got some attention around the country.
It did definitely, and good attention for Arkansas. So you just hope that it isn't rat poison for this team, right? There you go. Mike Hot Dogger says, looks like we did okay hiring Calipari. They look sharp. Any thoughts on the Kentucky team? As long as we beat them, I'm happy no matter where we're ranked.
This is a strange response, but I think it's indicative of the way a lot of fans think. Now let's talk about this for a minute. Did okay hiring okay? I think most people believe they hit a home run. Now what he's saying
Everyone does, yeah.
as long as we beat Kentucky, I don't care where we're ranked. Look, I got to believe the average Razorback fan would much rather be ranked high during the season and go to the NCAA tournament and make an impact a lot more than beating Kentucky. They could lose to Kentucky at Rupp.
Yeah.
And I think most fans would be okay with that as long as they had a really good season.
I don't know if fans would be okay with
Well,
it.
if you give a choice, because
no,
what
if
did
you
he
give a
say?
choice, yes.
I'm okay with it as long as they beat them. In other words, I don't care what happens as long as we beat them. I agree that a lot of fans think like that, and I think some of it is driven by this Kentucky thing that's happened ever since Cal was hired, where they keep busting in on stories and laying all this advice on everybody. Wait a minute, you're going to find out. So I think it's tainted his thinking a little bit.
Okay, all right. Well, I think fans wouldn't be okay with it if they lost to Kentucky.
They would be better with it than having a bad season and not doing
not
well
making the tournament.
Yes.
I think for sure that's the tale of two stories, or what is it? The better half of the two options there. But it's just interesting thought process there in general, I think.
I think that was a very interesting response or question or whatever it is.
Yeah, but I mean, everything we've been hearing about this Kentucky team, I think they actually will be all right.
Jimmy Dykes, and he was a coach at Kentucky under Sutton, so he likes them too, and he has to be fair and objective. He said on the telecast that he had been to some of their practices, and he felt like they were going to be really good. So I don't think Kentucky's going to be bad this year. It'll be interesting to see how they respond under when they've had a coach for however long Cal has been there, over
12 years.
Over a decade. And so now they've got a new coach. So that's interesting to them, but I don't care, honestly.
You don't care what Mark Pope does at Kentucky.
No,
you just care about what happens here at Arkansas. And I think we'll find out a little bit more. I think it's hard to judge the team because we haven't been to Kentucky's practice. We haven't, looked at what Kentucky is doing so far this year. So we'll see. We'll give you a better answer on how Kentucky looks a little closer to basketball season. I guess not a little closer to basketball season, a little closer to SEC play of basketball season. But Marty Bird's proxy says we're somewhat familiar with revenue sharing in professional sports. But how will this differ in college sports? Will the revenue stream be from TV?
Well, certainly I think that part of it will probably get shared. Now, I don't think you were looking up some of this stuff.
So I think it's because I think people are not understanding what revenue sharing, what they're proposing, right? The revenue sharing is not, don't think of it like the NFL where everybody in the league is literally revenue sharing, right? And they're taking a portion of their ticket sales and they're putting it into a pool and revenue sharing. That's not what it means. What they're proposing is revenue sharing amongst the athletes at the university. At that school. That's what the language says in the proposal. They are saying that 22% of what your institution makes when it comes to the athletic department, 22% can be used to pay those athletes.
But the point is, there's a cap on that.
There is. That's it.
And
About 22 million.
And here's
is what
what's
they're saying.
significant. Texas, which has, they've got like $220 million a year or something available to them.
Right, yeah.
They can't go, oh, we've got all this money. We're just going to give our players $50,000 a year where everybody else haven't given them 20.
Right.
You can't do that because there's a cap on it.
Right.
So the revenue sharing on the money that the school generates is going to be equal.
Yeah, the proposed cap, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone, 22 million is what I read.
I'm guessing that the money available to each school through TV revenue will be similar too. Now, I don't know how that will work because you still got conferences.
Yeah.
And so if you've got the SEC and the Big 12, a Big 10, which have the two biggest per school payout, I don't know if they have to share that with the Big 8 or Big 10, Big 12, and the ACC. I don't know if they have to do that or not. That'll still be decided. But that's
different from what he's asking about. Again, the revenue sharing that is being proposed right now. You can't think of it as revenue sharing amongst the league. You have to, or amongst the all the teams in the NCAA. It's revenue sharing amongst your institution.
To me, what the most exciting part of this is that it shows behind the scenes that these coaches understand, and these people, these administrators behind the scenes understand that college football fans, now maybe if you're at Texas or A&M and Tennessee that generate a lot of money, maybe you don't like it. But the average fan does not want a sport in which money decides everything. How much money you've got determines whether you win a championship or not. And this will prevent that, because it will then take us back to a situation where, why does a kid go to a school? He went on a visit and liked it. He had a good feeling. His parents went there. I want to go because my parents went there. He had a friend that likes it. He has a teammate that went there. The traditional reasons why you would go to a school become more important again.
Right. And a little bit, because I think you're now going to place an emphasis on, it's not about how much money the school can give you. How much money do the boosters have? How many NIL deals can I make around the area?
Whoa.
How many corporations are in the area that the school is in? And what kind of money can I make?
That still has to be decided too. And
right.
And I've been told, I've read that there's even going to be a limit on that you're not going to be able to get 2, 5, 8 million or whatever.
Sure, and that's where it comes into play. If that comes into play too, then you're talking about what you're talking about.
And how would that be done? Here's how it would be done, the same way it's done in the NFL. On the surface, telling somebody there's a limit on what you can make is an antitrust violation. You couldn't do that in a regular job.
No.
If you got hired by somebody and they said, well, yeah, we want to pay you more, but because this other TV station can't afford it, we can't pay you that.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be an antitrust violation. But if you get these players to be in a players' union, then they would all have to vote to agree to abide by this. And if they do, then they can limit this.
Absolutely.
And so that's one more step where you don't win just because you got more dough than the other school. And that's what I want to see, because I'm telling you, I will lose all interest in this sport.
I know you will.
If we end up in a situation where the people with all the money, are the one. I mean, you know what I like about the NFL? Who has more money in the NFL than anybody?
Dallas Cowboys.
Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
What does it mean to him? He's poop.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean jack, because they've got this thing structured where you hire the right coaches, you draft the right people, you develop the right people. It's not about how much money you've got.
Correct.
And I want to see that in college. I want to make sure that stays that way on the college game.
Absolutely. You and plenty of other coaches do as well.
You know what this is going to do if we go to this, though?
Okay.
It's going to bring back cheating. But I like cheating because
No,
I like the cheating approach because you can always be caught cheating.
True.
Right now, if you cheat, there's no way to cheat. There's no rule.
Yeah, they don't give you
They'd go, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. We don't have it. The courts are deciding.
Yeah, we don't want to get sued, so fine, it's
but
fine.
when you bring back, if you make all these rules, then all of a sudden cheating can be enforced again.
It can, yeah.
So you're not going to totally eliminate the cheaters.
No, you're not.
There will always be the cheaters.
There will
But now we can sit around and go, they're cheating and they're going to get caught.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you get people like, what's his name at LSU in basketball? Remember the cheater? What was that guy's name?
Will Wade.
Will Wade. Then you can laugh when they get caught.
Yeah, there you go.
Especially on the telephone when he's making cheating deals over the phone.
You absolutely can. It's kind of funny, Mike, that you say all this, because we're taking a step in the right direction by this revenue sharing and the things that are supposed to happen. We're taking a step in the right direction, which I like to see for sure. You're not going to build Rome in a day, but we're making progress. Hogman80 asks, what is the ceiling for the soccer squad? I feel like this could be the year to get over the hump and win the SEC tournament and make it the college.
Who's our expert on the staff? Is it Kevin? Is it Evan?
I think Evan was.
Does he like soccer?
He loves soccer. He's locked in. Yeah.
I don't know how much you follow. I don't watch it a whole lot. Here's my only reaction from watching them.
Yeah.
And I think the law of averages suggests that sooner or later, if you keep winning the SEC regular season, you're going to win the tournament.
But that would be the hope, right?
That would be the hope, and then you're seated better in the NCAA's already.
Yes.
So yeah, sooner or later that's going to happen. Is that this year? I don't know, because here's what I've observed: they are really good defensively this year. Mm-hmm. Really good.
Absolutely.
They seem to have an issue at times scoring.
Yeah.
So that might limit them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because Mississippi State right now leads the standings, right? And I think they're undefeated in the conference, and so they lead the standings. Arkansas lost to them 1-0, but the interesting part of that game was that Colby Hale was kind of subbing girls in and out, and I was going, why is he playing her? Why is he playing her? And so I don't know if that was a coaching decision to say, and we haven't gotten to ask him this, but I would if we got a press conference with him anytime soon. But I wanted to ask him what was the decision making there of subbing so many different girls
What
in.
if he's perfectly fine not winning the regular season
Well,
in order to win?
And I know this is a bit of a conspiracy, but I was about to say, that's not like him. I wonder if he was like, okay, we're down 1-0. Let's see what our girls can do. Let's see what the rest of the team can do. Maybe he was making they were number one at that point. They were number one. I don't think he likes being number one. I think he likes being a little lower in the national rankings.
And so maybe you'd be fine with finishing second.
Maybe he would.
Maybe that's the key to winning the SEC tournament.
Maybe it is. I don't know. So that's my only thing that I'm going.
Because when you do that, you're suddenly not in a defensive position anymore. You're in an offensive position.
Absolutely.
It's that old King of the Hill thing that we used to play when we were kids, or King of the Mountain.
Yes.
Because when you got up on that mountain in my neighborhood, that's when you were fixing to get it. But when you were one of the guys not on the mountain, you could just go after that guy that's up on top of it.
And that's kind of my wonder is if Colby Hale, and I don't think he would ever admit to this, I don't think he would, but did he not like having the number one team in the nation, having that on his team?
Even number one in the league.
Exactly. So now they're not that. They're not that. They're still great. They're still very talented.
But I still wonder about their offense this year.
I wonder as well. We'll see what happens in the SEC tournament. That's coming up, next week? That's coming up next week in Florida.
And we've got another big exhibition basketball game coming up.
We got all this
stuff. We got
this
big, huge, important Ole Miss game coming up.
We've got a lot coming up.
And for the first time in a long time, they're going to be playing a game where no one talking about Sam Pittman being fired is a factor.
Yeah, well,
they're not a factor.
Well, they're not a factor, maybe, but they're still there, Mike.
They're there, but all you have to do is ignore them because they're talking to the wall. They might as well stand back there and face that wall and say, Sam Pittman's going to be fired. He's terrible.
Sam Pittman's still going to be fired this year. Okay, well, you guys can keep yelling that to the wall. We're going to keep doing our show here, and we'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.